Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mythic Writer. Today, we're going to talk briefly about publishing 101, more specifically, self publishing 101. I see a lot of people talking and writing and asking questions in online writing forums, Facebook, different places. And I try to answer some of those questions when I can, but I've just been noticing so many of them lately that I thought I would make a quick YouTube video, just talk about some of the basic things that I've learned over the years from running a small publishing company. One of the biggest things you've got to watch for with self publishing is don't be a self published book. Um, what I mean by that is I have seen a lot of books that I've bought from Amazon and other places that were clearly self-published books. And how do I know this? Because they had approximately 5 to 10 errors per page in them. And Random House is never going to publish a book like that. And you shouldn't either. If your level of skill is that low and your level of financial investment is that low, you shouldn't be putting stuff out there, calling it a book, calling yourself an author. Now, this is where a lot of people get into big time wasting discussions online. Are you an author if you print out a book? And it doesn't really matter one way or another. But what really matters is, like everything else in life, is reality. If you type up a first draft of a novel and send it immediately from Word to Amazon, put it up on there and call yourself an author, that's fine. Just to know that most people in the industry, including librarians, people who buy books, or bookstore owners that stock shelves, are not going to consider you an author. And that's really what matters. So how can you become an author as a self-published person? How can you be looked at by the industry and people who buy books, stock bookshelves? How can you get those people to view you more as an author? Well, there's several steps, and it's going to cost you a little money. It's going to cost you time, and it's going to be well worth it. First thing I think we should all think of as authors, if you're putting out a book, you're basically putting out a product for your customers, and your customers are your readers. You should respect your readers. You should, love your readers and think, wow, look, they're reading my stuff. They're supporting me. This is a big deal. This is like a sacred bond and a relationship of trust that, you don't want to break that trust. So you want to give them the best product you can give them. It's so funny because most people, if they were doing another type of business, let's say building bookshelves or some kind of furniture, or making crafts, they wouldn't just stitch something halfway together and or miss some spots on the furniture that weren't painted or sanded right and just go out there and try to sell it. If you did, you'd probably quickly realize you wasted your money paying rent at the craft fair. But when it comes to writing, people think, oh, I just wrote something, first draft, bam, publish it. Nobody does that. Stephen King doesn't do that. So if Stephen King doesn't do that, you shouldn't do it neither. There is really no such thing as a great first draft novel. First novels, or any novel, are rewritten, not written. And by that, I mean, through a series of 2 to 5 drafts. Some people have done more, but you can get crazy with it. You are honing that story. You're honing everything in the writing. So what you want to do is, first, you want to learn to write. I see a lot of people 20 years old, 21 years old, fresh out of high school, maybe no college in them. Maybe they've read a book, maybe they haven't, and they decide they're going to write books. I see a lot of people that all they've ever done is watch movies. They've really scarcely read a novel. This is a really bad idea. This is akin to being a musician and trying to write songs and having a band and having never listened to any other music and having no idea about the Beatles or the Doors or Led Zeppelin or any of these other bands that came before you, that's a horrible idea. You learn so much from your contemporaries and the masters who have set the stage before you. You need to understand that first and foremost. And then the next thing is you've got to practice. You've got to either read, I'd say 20 to 50 writing books, take some college classes, or you need to go and take some online courses. I'm currently developing a really good online course about plotting, and I'll probably have another one about self-publishing. But there are plenty out there already. Some of them, a couple $100, some of them $1,000, but whatever they are, they're well worth the investment. You just need to dig around a little bit to find a really good one. But you really need to take this seriously, because I just see so many people think, well, I've read a couple of books and therefore I'm a writer. That's really not what makes you a writer. Trust me on this. There are so many aspects to the craft and things you need to know and understand that you need to study. It's great to get writing, write some stuff. Don't expect the first couple of things to be, publishable on Amazon, especially if you're, a very young person. The more you live, the more you have to write about, and the more of a story you have to tell. I know I've seen my writing really grow a lot after age 30. It just seemed to really get better and better. And of course, I just kept learning and practicing. Getting a major in English in college and creative writing and screenwriting helped. That was some extra great education. But really, by the time I got all that, I had already read probably over 100 books about writing. And, every book gives you something a little bit different than the other books. So, yeah, it is worth it. So you want to go in and really learn the craft of writing. Go ahead and write, practice writing, realize a lot of that first writing is not going to be that great. And that's pretty typical for everyone. So don't feel bad about it. But that's part of, paying your dues. And once you get to the point where you really feel like, hey, this is good, and people are telling you it's good, and I don't mean just your mom and your best friend, some people that maybe don't know you, or maybe the local librarian reads something and says, this is pretty good. A lot of times people start sending it out to publishers, trying to publish short stories in magazines, maybe publishing things online, seeing where that goes. But once you get your craft up to where it needs to be, there's a few things you need to do to really self-publish the right way. And by publish, it means a publisher is publishing you. So you need to become a publisher. That's your best bet. So if you can go out, and there's a couple things you'll do. One, you're going to want to hire a book cover designer. Even if you go to some of these sites out there where maybe they'll put together a design for $100 to $200, you're probably really money well spent, because most people just do not have graphic design skills. It's just terrible. You can go through and almost pick out a self-published book by the cover, and you don't want people to do that. You want your cover to really be good and snappy. We'll talk about covers on here one day, just have a whole show on covers, but just do that. The other thing you want to do is you really do want to get an editor. You need a professional editor to edit your writing. Stephen King has written dozens and dozens and dozens of best-selling novels. John Grisham, J.K. Rowling, all kinds of writers out there have written all these great novels. Guess what? They all had editors, okay? And the editors made their work better. That's just a fact. So what you need to do is hire yourself an editor, trying to make sure that he is or she experienced in your genre. So if you're writing horror, you don't want to get a romance editor. They're not going to understand a horror in the right way, and vice versa. So if you're going out there and hiring someone, hire someone good, ask around. Now, the best thing a person could do who says, I'm going to become a self-published person, is join an organization called IBPA, Independent Book Publishers Association. It's going to cost you, I don't know, I think somewhere in $100, $150 range is what it is right now, depending on what kind of membership you come in, but understand that this group is going to teach you everything you need to know about self-publishing. You're going to get, regular newsletters every month. You're going to see the people who print books and publish books, and you're going to see editors, advertising for, jobs and trying to look for authors. So this is a great, great site to a great group to belong to. And so what you're trying to do is become a publisher, not just someone that prints their book out. And then you'll probably you want to hire a professional book designer. Once all the editing's done, once you've got your final draft ready, they will take and put it in a program, most likely called Adobe InDesign. I have that program. I use this program. This program has a learning curve like you've never seen. It really is not for the faint of heart. And it's better off, I learned, to just hire someone to do that aspect, because they can put your page numbers in and just make the book look cool and give you the big, what they call drop caps, where the first capital letter of a chapter takes up, like, say, 3 lines. Things like this is really distinguishes your book from other self-published books, because if you look, most self-published books will never have drop caps in it. But when you look at books by the big writers, usually they'll have drop caps starting each chapter. Little things like that if you really don't know book design, you don't even think of or understand. So this is very vital. So you got your designer lined up, you got your cover designer lined up, and your editor. Now you're going to want to go to somewhere called Bowker, Bowker. They sell ISBNs. Your best bet at this point is to buy at least 100 ISBNs. This is going to cost you a little bit of money. We bought, with my publishing company, 1,000, which was quite an expenditure. But what happens when you look on the back of a book, you'll see the ISB numbers, and at the very end, there's sometimes there's one number separated by a couple dashes. Sometimes there's 3, sometimes there's 4. That kind of indicates how many ISBNs the publisher has. And this is all technical talk, but by getting 1,000 ISBNs, it gave us 3 digits in that little area, which showed that we had 1,000 ISBNs. That distinguishes you as someone who's probably somewhat of a respectable publisher. If you've only got one number there, that means you've bought 1 to 10 ISBNs. You're clearly a self-publisher. No one ever looks at a single digit there and thinks this isn't a self-published book, because it is a self-published book. Even a small house, like at a college or something, publishing house that maybe puts out 5 or so books a year, is probably going to go ahead and buy 1,000 ISBNs. You'd want to buy at least 100. 100 at least says, okay, this is at least a small publisher. This isn't just someone trying to publish herself. The reason this is important is to really publish right, you want to get library sales, and you can't get library sales without having your own ISBN that is linked to a publishing company. And I don't mean like just Create Space, Amazon. Don't think of that as a publishing company. And this also links your ISBN to your book, and it links it to you, the publisher. When people look this up, like librarians will do this, sometimes booksellers will do this, they'll see the publisher, and then they'll see, who owns it, and that's what you want. So when librarians go and they start looking through their catalogs, they're not just going to go and buy books off of Amazon on CreateSpace and stuff. You want to be able to get in where you could be with like an Ingram book salesperson, where you'll be in their catalog, or Baker and Taylor. And then when the librarians look at these books they give them, these handouts, that's how they pick their books out. And a book can sell 1,000, 2,000 copies to libraries if it's done right. Obviously, there's a lot to this, but those kind of sales can actually give you the kind of money you need to do an actual print run, so that your cost per book, instead of being, let's say, $4, comes down to maybe $1.50. So it's a lot more profit for you. Now, this really will set you apart and will set you up as a publisher. You've done several major things. You've got a professional cover designer. You've got a book designer who's laid out the typeface. And one more thing about that, printing from a Word file does not look professional. It looks weird. Sometimes they'll leave things they call rivers, where if you look down at a whole page, there may be a bunch of space here and there. InDesign takes that and compresses those words in a weird way and spaces the letters. It works on a letter by letter, word by word, line by line, level that a regular word processor just does not work at. It really makes beautiful books. So, you've got your inside design, you had your book edited at least once. Sometimes you kind of have someone do a whole overall edit and for story and continuity. And then sometimes you run it through maybe even a separate person to get a new fresh set of eyes who does a line edit. That edit should cost you less. You're going to have some money in this, but you're going to have a product that is 10 times better, 10 times more likely to sell, something you'll be more proud of. Your fans are going to love it. They're going to appreciate it. It's going to help you to build that fan base, because you got to think, if you're going to be a self-published writer, you've got to build a fan base. You're not building a fan base by putting out a book with a bunch of typos, misspellings, horrible writing, passive voice. You're in this character's mind, and all of a sudden you're in that character's mind, all in the same paragraph. Things like this is not going to build a fan base. And I know there are probably people out there who are atrocious writers who have a fan base. Always remember that an exception to the rule only proves the rule even more, because it shows how rare it is. The majority, vast majority, 99.9 something percent of writers have a professionally published book, just like I told you, if you want to sell thousands and thousands of copies. Now, there's no guarantee that you will sell thousands and thousands of copies, but I can almost guarantee you that if you put out a first draft from Word, you're not going to sell thousands of copies. It's going to be very rare if you do. Sometimes in nonfiction, it's a little easier. You could get by, with a lot less work, so to speak, as long as you're not making typos and you're writing fairly clearly. When it comes to fiction, there is so much to it that you really want someone to help you look over that manuscript and know that you're putting out a great book. Now, here's the cool thing. These files can also be uploaded to a company called Ingram Spark, used to be Lightning Source, and that's a great place to get your books printed on demand. They also will be lined up and be available in bookstores, which is a really, cool thing to be able to say that they're in a bookstore. And then, you may be able to get some sales that way. I don't put a lot of focus on bookstore sales, but it's not too bad. And then the other thing I think we could do is just make sure that you are promoting the book great, that you've got a lot of websites. You're on your website, you're on Facebook, you're on some social media places, maybe even Pinterest. A few other places are great places to be. So make sure you're out there promoting that book. So that is, self-publishing 101. Beware of companies. I will not point out any names. I will not name names, but companies that say, we'll publish your book for you and give you 40% commission. You just have to pay us $1,200. That's not publishing your book for you. That's someone charging you money to do a crappy job of putting together a crappy book and putting out a crappy product, and they make a bunch of money. And then they're listed as the publisher because you're most likely using their ISBN that's associated with them. As soon as the librarian sees, this or this as a publisher, they are not going to be hiring or, buying your book. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me here. I am your host, James Dinowitz at MYTHICwriter.com.